Hey everyone, welcome back to tipping. Today I'm going to do my round two tips, but just briefly, I'm going to go back and look how I did last week. Now I got a score of six, which is pretty fucking average if I say so myself. Of course, I'm not sure. The only people who would have tipped Richmond would be people who were just throwing intentionally or very optimistic Richmond fans. But Jesus fucking Christ, I did not see that coming. Carlton, it was the worst day of their lives. Like Carlton was so bad in the second half, and yeah, credit to Richmond. They just won with a bunch of pressure mainly, and they just absolutely dismantled Carlton. Yeah, the kids absolutely destroyed them. But you got Hawthorn, Geelong. Thankfully, the Lions game right. That game was such a weird game. There was so many weird turnovers, but we just did enough to get the W, thankfully. Um, Greatly got the Dogs. That Port tip, yeah, not really proud of in hindsight. I really should have backed Collingwood, and considering it was a Saturday night. Like it was pretty different conditions to like an early afternoon in Sydney, their last game, which there was a lot of cramp and that stuff. And yeah, the MCG especially, yeah, I feel a bit silly for tipping Port for that one. Um, and then after that, the Crows and the Suns smashed their respective opponents, and I was so pissed at Melbourne bottling it against the Giants. For the gamble. I went for the gamble for Melbourne, and they were so fucking close, but they just bottled it. Lockie fucking Keefe, with his first strike kick of his career, won the game, and yeah, I was not very happy after that. But still, like six is decent, I'd say. But anyway, I'll move on to round two now. And first up, Thursday night, we've got Carlton again on the big stage. Let's see how much they will embarrass themselves tonight. They take on Hawthorn, who are, yeah, definitely one of the most dangerous teams in the competition at the moment. So they're not playing Richmond, who many thought to be wooden spoon favourites. So yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty one-sided affair. This one. I mean, of course, I'm not ruling out a Carlton response because I mean, who would have thought Richmond won? Like anything could happen in footy. I've learned, but like if Carlton's struggling to win a game against like 18-year-olds, I don't see how they're going to get much better against Hawthorn. So like with the Blues, it was just embarrassing the way they played. They just absolutely froze, like with any amount of pressure put to them. And with the Hawks, like they were very good against Essendon. Obviously, like their kicking game is just proving really, really strong at the moment, and I think they're a real premiership contender because to win a premiership, you generally need to have good small forwards, and Hawthorn absolutely have that. And Carlton do not. Jesse Motlop, he was pretty much invisible in the second half, and like who else have they got besides that? Francis Evans, which they've literally omitted for this game. But on the other hand, Hawthorn have Dylan Moore, Giddy, and the Wizards. So I think those guys in particular can get really dangerous because Carlton don't really have any good small defenders at all. Like if Hawthorn just don't kick it to Wiedering, like I don't like I could honestly see all three of those guys kicking 10 goals each. Like on paper, I just don't see how Hawthorn lose this game. And I know crazy things have happened, but yeah, I'm going to be tipping Hawthorn relatively comfortably in this one by 36 points. Moving on now, we've got the Western Bulldogs, Footscray, against Collingwood with their 100th anniversary game at the MCG. The first time the Dogs have hosted a game in the MCG, like in absolutely ages. And this is a pretty interesting game. I must say, I say pretty much every single game is interesting. Like the competition's so even. So I've got to stop saying that. Um, but yeah, for the Dogs last week, actually, like it was a sneaky, really good winning that game against North because considering their outs, I mean, I think I said Richards was out, but I didn't know he actually did play and he kind of dominated. But besides that, like not having Bontempelli and Trelaw, like that is such a detriment to them. But considering it was just against the North and it did only just get across the line, I think Collingwood. I know it's an away game for them, but at the MCG, like it's still going to be very hard to beat. Um, Collingwood, obviously, they responded pretty much as well as they could have against Port Adelaide. I didn't actually watch most of that game, but I wasn't watching mostly the Dogs North game. But from what I gathered, their midfielders absolutely brutalised Port Adelaide. And yeah, this is a very, very tough task for the Bulldogs, I must say. Still, I honestly think the Dogs can contend later in the season, but just those outs still worry me a lot. And I think Collingwood should be able to win this game, considering as well those forwards that they have, Membry, Myercheck, and McStay. They look like they hit some form last week, so I'm going to be tipping Collingwood in this one, but a little bit closer. I'll tip them by 18 points. Moving on to Saturday now, we've got Essendon versus Adelaide again at the MCG. This is the first time these two teams have played at the MCG since 1995, which is pretty crazy. And Essendon won the game by 122 points, but I think it'll be a bit of a different story for this one. For the Crows last week, I know it was at home against not the best opponent, but my God, they absolutely obliterated St Kilda. Yeah, their forwards looking really dangerous, especially their tools, Phil Thorpe and who was it, Fogarty as well. And Essendon last week against Hawthorn, I think they battled hard. They really battled hard, and I admire that. But they still have a couple of defensive question marks. I think Ben Mackay, like he's the sort of bloke that like you're not going to win a premiership with him. He's just not very good. Like he's no Harris Andrews or Jacob Weeding, and I think because of that, going to be tipping Adelaide in this one because I think Ben Mackay could get a bit exposed with those powerful tools that they have. But it's not just the tools for the Crows; they're smalls as well. Rankin and Rochelle, like they were just absolutely taking the piss against them as well. Like yeah, they're going to be really dangerous. The Crows forward 50 is, I believe, where the game can be won for them. And as well, the midfield isn't just like terrible either. Like, in fact, it's really good. Jordan Dawson's, again, did whatever he wanted pretty much against St Kilda. So it will be a little bit of a bigger challenge for this game. Of course, there's still little question marks around the Crows away from home. And the Essendon midfield will be a bit better. Of course, Jai Colwell had a pretty good game last week as well. But I will, again, be tipping Adelaide because I just think they should win this game on paper. And if they really want to stamp themselves as a serious finals contender, they should win this game. So I'm going to tip Adelaide in this one by 24 points. Now, Port Adelaide and Richmond at the Adelaide Oval. Now, this is a very intriguing game, this one, because start of the season, you would have just penciled this in for an easy Port Adelaide victory. But both of these teams' first week were pretty much polar opposites. I mean, Port Adelaide got absolutely embarrassed by Collingwood. And Richmond, I mean, obviously not. I don't think not even the most optimistic Richmond fans would have predicted how that game would have went, especially considering they were down by 41 fucking points at one stage. Absolutely insane. Um, but I mean, you would think surely a response would come from Port Adelaide. I've written in my notes here just like what the fuck happened again. Their midfield just got like belted. There's no other way to describe it. But I'm gonna be conservative and just to Port Adelaide in this one because Richmond absolutely I think they're capable of winning this game, but it's just gonna be a tough task in Adelaide, especially for a lot of their debutants, like their first away trip. Um, and yeah, it's just like a real question of whether that manic pressure that they had last week can be sustained. And I think it's going to be tricky for them. Yeah, again, away from home. Honestly, if this game is in Melbourne, though, I probably would tip Richmond. I'm not even going to lie. But just because it's in Adelaide, and you got to respect Richmond for what they did last week. But I mean, I still think they're not going to be that good this year in terms of overall wins. So I'll play it safe and tip Port in this one again. Surely your response um, will come from Port Adelaide. You would think so. I I will tip Port Adelaide in this one by 5 goals. All right, Saturday night we have Saints taking on the Cats under the roof at Marvel Stadium, and I would be very concerned if I was a St Kilda supporter, and also depressed considering I would be a St Kilda supporter. But yeah, geez, the Geelong Cats looked pretty good last week against Freo. Um, Bailey Smith in his first game, he kind of just took the piss, did whatever he fucking wanted. And something to note though is for the Saints. While they were pretty abysmal last week against the Crows, they do get, I believe, Max King and Owens, and maybe someone else as well. So that will help out that forward. That would help out their forward line. Um, but with that said, I mean, I can't tip against Geelong for this game considering how they went last week. Yeah, again, as I said before, to win a premiership, you need good smalls, and Geelong definitely have that. Graham Myers, Tyson Stengel. So, yeah, I just think they'll be too classy for the Saints in this game as well. So, I think the Saints will have a pretty down year, as said last week. So, yeah, I'm going to tip Geelong in this game by 5 goals, 30 points. All right, now I've got the Mighty Lions taking on the not mighty West Coast Eagles. And I mean, do I need a justification for why I think the Lions will win this game? I don't think so. Because we'll be unfurling a flag in this game, so that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, the Eagles were just utterly shit against the Suns, and I think they're in store for a double Queensland bashing in this game, especially at the Gabba last year. When these teams played, it was fairly close, but that was in Perth, and this is in Brisbane, and West Coast look absolutely terrible. Really got to win for us. Of course, our small forward line was pretty decimated. Of course, Charlie going down before the game, and Link did his SEL, obviously, but Loman as well went down. But we still found a way to win just against the Swans and that real character building win, I must say. And thankfully, this game should be a pretty easier task. I mean, I really should just stop talking. Brisbane are going to win. Like, we're going to win this game. I don't really need to be waffling on as much as I am right now. So, with that said, I've tipped us by 60 points for this one. I could go more, but I figured we have played West Coast at the Gabba last couple of years in games similar to this where we should be absolutely destroying them, but we kind of taken our foot off the gas in these games. So yeah, I'll tip a modest 10 goal win, but yeah. All right, North take on Melbourne again at Marvel Stadium, and I was actually pretty conflicted about this game at first thought. But I've been leaning towards Melbourne. I think I'm going to back them in again this week. They were so close last week, and they looked way better than they did last year, especially with Petrarca. And Again, I did really consider tipping North for this one, but I just think that again not really trustworthy. Like you can't really trust them to get kind of winnable-ish games like this one. And I think the main reason as well, Nick Larkey, while he did kick 5 goals last week, I think against the VFL Bulldogs defence, I think Jake Lever will prove to be a much tougher opponent. I'm not actually sure if Stephen May is back for this game, but even if he isn't, I still think the D's defence are a lot better than the Bulldogs. And again, North's defence themselves, pretty shit. They have been shit for a few years now. And they do have pretty dangerous guys in the D's team, like Caleb Windsor, for example. So I will be back in Melbourne for this one. They're just more trustworthy than North. Um, so yeah, I will be tipping the D's in this game to open their season or open their wins for the season by 36 points. And last up, and maybe the most evenly matched game for the round, it's got Sunday night, Freo taking the Swans in Perth. Um, and yeah, I think similarly to Port, with Fremantle, how they really sucked last week, I think they're going to respond, hopefully. Considering as well it is at home in Perth, they are pretty tricky to win there. But with that said, there is actually a really weird trend that's been going on with Dockers and Swans matches in the previous few years. Like the away teams have been winning these matchups. Been a pretty bizarre trend, but I wouldn't back that. Considering you just can't really predict these things, and like Fremantle heading into the last week, they won in Geelong the last 2 times, and then look how they went. So you can't really bank on those things. But um, for the Swans, again, pretty much the same story as the Hawthorn game. They were pretty good in parts, but especially for the Lions game, they're like essential skills at some points were just off. They were like dropping marks, missing tackles, and that. It was just again a bizarre game. And the Tom McCartan situation, like where he plays, is like it's pretty weird time for the Swans figuring out what's going on for them. I still think they're an overrated team. Like yeah, again, Chad Water pretty much dragged his team over the line as well as Heaney. And I know how poor Freo were last week, especially defensively. That was bizarre how they conceded so many goals in that last quarter, like 10 goals with Alex Pearce back there and that. But again, I think they will respond. Of course, they got Brayshaw and Sarong and those guys back there. So I think they can compete with Sydney's midfield. And also a big boost to them is Shy Bolton, who I believe will be back for this game. So that'll definitely add some energy to the Freo lineup. So uh, kind of playing it safe here as well. I haven't really tipped many upsets this round, but I'll play safe again. Tipping Fremantle in this one barely, considering he's in Perth. That's probably the main decider. And Sydney, though, I tell you what, they would absolutely want to win this game, considering if they don't, they will be 0-3. But I wouldn't worry too much though, considering we were 0-3 and we won the flag. So still, it's not really wanted. But anyways, back on topic. I'll be tipping Fremantle win this game by 2 goals. Should be a pretty good game, I reckon. And that is all for the tipping this week. Hopefully, get more than 6. That wasn't very good. Although there are only 8 games this week. The expansion teams have a bye back to the early 2000s. But yeah, should be another good round of footy. And see you next week.